been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Coming to you from the 6th floor of 3 Financial Center in West Little Rock, Arkansas. Welcome in. It is another edition of the Get Ready for the Future show. We are about to dive into helping people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. That is our mission statement at GenWealth Financial Advisors. It's what we do with the thousands of clients that we work with on a daily basis all across the state of Arkansas and in Northwest Louisiana. And it's what we try to do with education here on the Get Ready for the Future show, where we offer some insight into questions that we get on a weekly basis. My name is Scott Inman. You're stuck with me again. I'm here pretty much every week. But Teresa Arago, we like to rotate this other chair. Lots of people in there. And the Conway office is representing today.
Yes, bringing a little different flair, shaking things up since they're apparently stuck with you every week.
They are. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, my wife says that all the time. No, I'm kidding. So we're ready to jump in and answer some of your questions about money. Before we do that, though, it's a little bit of a special edition of the Get Ready for the Future show today. We have a big event coming up, and it's really soon, actually, on October 4th. It's a Saturday. We are hosting a Business Owners Summit. It's called Built to Endure, and we're going to hold it at the Delta Hotel in Little Rock, and we're going to tell you in a little bit how you can sign up for that. But it's an event for business owners, and there's a lot of content that's going to be coming your way. John Shrewsbury and Janet Walker, who often sit in this chair, are co-founders of GenWealth Financial Advisors, 20-plus years in the making now. They've been running their business, so they're going to provide some insight on growing a business. We're also going to hear from a benefits expert, so that is also helpful. So if you're a business owner, listen up, get ready to sign up for that. But our keynote speaker for that event is none other than former Arkansas Razorback football coach Houston Nutt. He's going to join us for a little Q&A session. I just finished writing the questions for that sit-down with him. So looking forward to chatting with him. And obviously he's was a football coach and made his name there. So you might be thinking, well, what's he got to do with business? Well, you think about it, there are a lot of correlations between running a football team, and running a business. And to give you a little taste of what is to come for the Business Owners Summit coming up Saturday, October 4th, we actually had the chance to sit down with Coach Houston Nutt, and here's a little bit of that. Coach, first of all, we are thrilled to have you at the Business Owners Summit. For our listeners who may not know your full story, there probably aren't too many of them out there, but there may be a few. Can you share a little bit about your career as coach of the Razorbacks and in the SEC, and what leadership has meant to you along the way?
Of course, born in Little Rock, Arkansas, you always had just such high respect for Coach Frank Broyles. Those are the teams that I used to watch play. My brothers and I, my dad would take us to War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock. And so, that was a dream, but it was almost like that's going to be hard to accomplish. But I knew I wanted to coach. My father was a coach, and so I knew I wanted to coach. So when Coach Broyles asked me to interview at the University of Arkansas back in 1997, I think out of the 14 candidates, I think that entire committee, along with Coach Broyles, they knew one thing, that I wanted the job more than anyone else in that room. And so it goes back to, your raising of calling the hogs since you've been probably 4 years of age. And so, it's been such a unbelievable blessing to be able to be the head coach of the University of Arkansas, but to walk that team down that ramp the first time. And then on top of that, we grew up watching the Southwest Conference, and I got a lot of respect for the Southwest Conference, but all of a sudden now we're talking about Alabama coming to your home field, LSU, Florida, Georgia. Oh my goodness. So the anxiety, especially that first year of Alabama coming to Fayetteville, I'll never forget that first conference game after having a couple of wins under our belt. This was the old Bear Bryant teams, in my mind. And especially being recruited by a team like Alabama, you can imagine not very much sleep during the week on that first one. But as we got going, Danny Ford really did an unbelievable job of recruiting some great guys, Brandon Burlsworth, Grant Garrett, Clint Sterner, Anthony Lucas, Zach Painter. I can go on and on. But the problem was these guys hadn't won, and they weren't together. And so I remember telling our staff, these guys will do anything we ask them to do. They're hard workers, and they're tough. And so once we kind of showed them really just about being together and playing for one another, it is amazing how this group came together and we got on this roll, and especially that first year. And you just can't say enough about the unselfishness of this team that wanted to win so bad for one another. And so it was a great feeling. I felt like the entire state was just united. When you get 72,000 in Fayetteville calling the Hogs, or 55,000 in Little Rock calling the Hogs all together, and you got one goal, you felt like we could beat the Green Bay Packers there for a while. And so it was a great feeling. And again, there's so many lessons. And I was a very fortunate victim of circumstance because my father was a coach, my mother a teacher, and then I had great coaches to learn from: Frank Broyles, Lou Holtz, Jimmy Johnson, Pat Jones, Jack Crow, Joe Kynes, Lewis Campbell. There's a lot of coaches that I came in contact with that were just great, great coaches. But the bottom line is 18-year-olds, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's the one thing this team knew. They knew how much we cared. And man, when we came together, we got on a roll, Scott.
Yeah. There's some great nuggets in there already for business owners who attend our Business Owners Summit. But without giving too much away, what are some of the themes you'll be touching on that you think business owners especially need to hear right now?
An attitude of gratitude. It's a privilege to come to work. I can't tell you how many times, whether I'd be at Boise State, Murray State, Arkansas, or Ole Miss, there's always, if you guys say, "Hey, Johnny, how's it going?" Well, Coach, I got to get up at 6:30 a.m. I got to get treatment. My hamstrings bother me. Then I got to go write a paper. And then I got to go to the weight room. And then I got to go to practice. Then I got to go back. And I said, whoa. It's not a got to job. You get to. And I think we can learn to take that lesson. I don't care what business you're in, what you do. You get to. You get to get up in the morning. You get to go to work. You get to write the paper. You get to go to the weight room. You get to be a Razorback. And to me, it's that attitude right there. And the other thing is you're going to get knocked down. That's the biggest, and that's not the sin. The sin is if you stay down. You got to get back up. It's a tough world. So I think there's going to be a lot of valuable lessons. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. And I think the other thing is if you're not willing to serve, if it's below you to serve, it's going to be beyond you to lead. And I think that is real critical. I think they could really jump on that. There's a lot of stories that we can get into on that. But I think all great leaders, they were great servers first.
When you think about Coach Nutt as the coach of the Razorbacks, you got to think about his motivating factor. I think about just saying that out loud, the "there ain't but one Razorback" speech. I mean, that'll everybody's seen that 100 times. And I'm sure they've watched it a little bit more as football season approaches this year, getting ready for the Razorback season. But when it comes to motivating, what's one piece of encouragement you could give to business owners who may feel worn down right now?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to just what we just got through talking about. Again, it's your attitude. All eyes are on you, on that leader. They're looking to you. And so if you're down, they're going to be down. And I think it's that little bit of extra. Again, it goes back to that first thing that we talked about. An 18, 19-year-old, they don't care how much you know X and O wise until they know how much you care. And I think all those little bitty ingredients of caring, serving, doing the little things with a great attitude, I think it takes a team to another level. And I don't care what team, what business you're in, you're willing to go a little bit extra, and they see how many hours the boss is putting in. They see a head coach picking up a Gatorade bottle on the field because he asked the players to, when you get through drinking Gatorade, pick up the bottle, something that simple. But what's amazing is if you shut the Gatorade off, say, hey, no more Gatorade, guys. And I'll never forget Anthony Lucas coming to me after about in that second week of two-a-days, Coach, where's the Gatorade? Well, we asked everybody when you get through drinking the Gatorade to throw it in the trash. And we see Gatorade bottles everywhere. It's something that little. Well, guess what? There was a meeting that night, and because he took ownership, he said, we got Coach Nutt and the coach is picking up Gatorade bottles. we're going to pick our Gatorade. I'm tired of drinking out of the faucet. I want the Gatorade back. So, I just think it's little things like that, little lessons like that we're going to get into. But to me, it's about an attitude. It's about a get up, especially when you get knocked down, and it's perseverance.
Well, there's obviously going to be a lot of takeaways, but I think we obviously want to focus a little bit on what are the action items. What do you hope business owners who attend the summit will walk away with after hearing from you and be able to apply?
I think there's going to be one thing, and not saying that we have all the answers, but I tell you what, I think there's going to be either one thing, even if they maybe say they may not get that much out of it, it can put confirmation on some of the things that we're going to be talking about what they're already doing maybe. But there's going to be, I think, in this period of time, there's going to be one thing that they're going to be able to take away to help their team, to take that team to another level. And it's something that could be so small. It's just the little things. To me, the little things turn into big things. And that's why we always had, hey, let's buckle up both chin straps, hands on the line. Why did we make them do that? Run through the line. They couldn't. Sometimes there's a few players that couldn't finish. We wanted to run 40-yard sprints, and they'd pull up at 38. We'd have to do it again. Coach, I ran 38 as hard. I thought I got through. No, you got to go. You got to finish. And you got to finish everything that you start. And that's the same way in business. And, when the weather's nice and, boy, the lights are on and the popcorn, the band's playing good, the first quarter, everybody feels pretty good. But there's going to be some times where you don't feel good. And your wife may be sick or your baby may be sick. And now that attitude, what kind of attitude if when you go into that office, when you go into your business meeting, how are you going to play that now? When they're looking in your eyes and they see, and that's the leadership that we're talking about. So I just think it's again, the little things. It's about an attitude of gratitude. It's about a work ethic, a perseverance, and finish.
All those things certainly go a long way. I can't imagine anybody listening and not being on the fence about whether or not to attend. But if they are, and they're still thinking about whether they should give up their Saturday morning and come out and join us at the Business Owner Summit, what would you say to them?
Oh, there's going to be one thing now. I know Saturday's real tempting to stay home and lay on that couch, but that's the difference. You want to be a difference maker. When we went recruiting, we wanted the guy that was extraordinary, not the ordinary guy. We wanted the guy that was extraordinary. And so get off of that couch on Saturday. There's going to be one thing that you're going to be able to grasp, to take back to your team, that's going to help your team. And so I will say this is going to be worth it to give up this one Saturday, to be able to grasp something, get one nugget, get one thing that's going to take your company to another level. And again, it's about you. It's about leadership, and all eyes are on you. This will be one Saturday you will not regret taking the time to come.
Well, and one added incentive, we made sure that we schedule it on the Razorbacks bye week. So they're not playing during the Business Owners Summit.
Hey, there's no excuse then.
Coach, thanks very much for your time, and we'll see you at the Business Owners Summit. Are you ready to run through a brick wall yet? I mean, talk about motivating.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go, right?
Yeah, and I think, with John and Janet, something they've always been really open about with us is how they have used mentors and others who are ahead of them on the journey to grow GenWealth to where it is now. That's why I love so much that we're doing this, because I've learned so much from just being around John and Janet and from the coaching they've gotten and seeing them get to pour into the next group and getting to hear from Houston Nutt. I'm excited.
You were taking notes even when you were listening.
I was. I'm not going to lie.
He had some good stuff in there. So if you want to hear more from Houston Nutt, here's how to do it. Sign up for our Built to Endure Business Owners Summit, Saturday, October 4th at the Delta Hotel in Little Rock. We will have a pathway there for you to do that, and it's just by going to our website. Get Ready for the Future, all together, no spaces or hyphens, getreadyforthefuture.com/endure, and you'll find out how to sign up there and join us on Saturday, October 4th. Good stuff coming up in just a few weeks. All right, we do have some questions to get to here today on the Get Ready for the Future show. We'll start with Carrie via email. How do you handle long-term care if you don't qualify for long-term care? What if I'm too old? What if I have health issues that preempt me from qualifying? That's a great question. What happens if you can't get long-term care insurance? Hey, maybe you're too old, maybe your health history disqualifies you, but the need hasn't gone away. So if you're in that boat, you're not out of options, but let's talk about what you can do to protect your future and your family even without a traditional policy. Let's talk a little bit about as a general setup. I mean, Carrie's asking about how to deal with it if you can't qualify. Long-term care is the elephant in the room, in my experience, in a client meeting room. It is, when it comes to financial planning and talking about retirement, a client is going to be focused on the good, right?
Yes.
Obviously, we all are. We want to have that positive. It kind of goes back to what Houston Nutt was just saying, right? When the lights are on and we're rolling and we're winning, everything's great. But it's not always, or it may not always be. 70% of Americans will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime, and the average length of care is 3 years. So when you think about those statistics, you got to have a plan for long-term care.
Yes, and as a female, we are more likely to need that care at some point regardless. We tend to outlive our spouses if you are married, and so that care is going to be more likely needed for us. And it is challenging when you don't feel like you can get coverage, the classic coverage, but there's more than one way to deal with this need. So just listen in. We're going to give you some ideas here.
All right, Carrie asked, what if he's too old? So let's deal with the age piece first. The best time to look for long-term care insurance, and this is right from the industry itself, is ages 55, between the ages of 55 and 60. Now, the reason that is statistically, we will need care in our late 70s to early 80s if you're going to need it. And that's not across the board. Obviously, some people need it sooner. But if you get the coverage too early, then you're going to get it cheaper, and that's great. But you could be paying those premiums for a really long time, and it might have actually been better for you to invest those dollars rather than put them into paying a premium, and you might have your own long-term care bucket. But if you wait much past the age of 60, then the cost of long-term care insurance is going to start to get much less cost-effective because you're closer to actually needing it.
And also, there are some circumstances where looking at it a little bit younger may make sense. If you have a family history of needing care early, then it may make sense to go ahead and get those coverages in place sooner than that 55 to 60-year-old range. But again, that's a unique circumstance, so that is kind of the odd outlier in this arena.
So that kind of deals with the age part, Carrie. Now, what if you do have health issues that preempt you from qualifying? That could very well be the case because that is the risk you're taking if you wait till that window too, right? 55 to 60. If you get it earlier, you might actually, you're likely going to be healthier and qualify for coverage. And I would say that the conditions to qualify for long-term care insurance are a little bit more stringent than other insurance policies because there's going to be a memory component to that because that's a big thing right now. That is what drives a lot of people into long-term care. It's the Alzheimer's, the dementia. I've got 2 clients just within the last few months that are dealing with, is it time to put their spouse into care? And one actually did, and he's paying $6,900 a month for that memory care facility. So that's, especially as we get older and live longer, that is more likely to happen. So the insurance policy is obviously going to be dependent upon not just physical health, but also mental health. So if Carrie does have a health issue and that preempts him from qualifying, let's talk about your options. The first one would be, do you have the assets that can help you self-insure?
Yes. In some cases, let me just define what self-insurance is first, actually. Self-insurance would be saying, okay, I'm going to let my income plan provide enough income that if I need care, I just use my assets to provide it. Okay. So you're just saying, I'm going to take all the risk on myself that I might need care and I need to use my assets. And that may be an option if you have enough assets for that. But there's this kind of messy middle group where you have substantial assets, but you're not just super wealthy. So spending down those assets could be a detriment to your spouse, your surviving spouse. So it is important to understand that impact and make sure you have enough assets to do that before you go that route if that's the decision you're going to make.
Yeah. So how are you going to know that? Well, that would be by building a retirement income plan. Because that if you say that, you go, well, I've got some pretty good assets, but I don't know what kind of income I'm going to need, and got this debt over here, got a mortgage I'm going to have in the first years of retirement. That all needs to be sorted out through the planning process. And the GenWealth Ready to Retire process is going to help you build a retirement income plan that will help you discover how much income you need and want, and do you have the assets to generate that and not run out during the course of your life. And if you have excess, if you have assets above and beyond what you need, then that's going to tell you that you have the possibility to self-insure. You could also build a more robust income stream if your assets support it. You know, a private nursing home, we just talked about the memory care facility, and that's in Arkansas for $6,900. But statistically, across the board, the average private nursing home could cost on average $9,000 a month or more. So if you're already working a plan that provides this, then that might be a way to self-insure as well. Rather than have a long-term care bucket sitting on the sidelines, you could have a plan that shows you that maybe you're not taking it today, but you could pull more out if you needed, and the plan would support it.
And I want to highlight something you just mentioned, and this is one strategy we've used for clients who can't qualify, is we say, okay, you've got X number of dollars in assets. We don't need all of that for your income needs. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of shave off a little chunk, set it to the side, let it grow, let it do what it needs to do, so that later on you do have a pool that is earmarked for that purpose to use in case you do. And if you don't, it's there for your heirs. But that is one way, if you don't need all of your assets for income production, that you can set aside some funds if you don't think you're going to qualify for a classic policy, or maybe it's not a good fit for you to have that classic policy.
And the other piece, as we wrap this one up for Carrie, I don't know how old Carrie is or when he plans to retire, but do you have access to an HSA? A health savings account could go a long way here as well. Maybe you're already doing that, but if you don't and you have access to it, that's a way to start building that nest egg, for you, if you will, for long-term care, because you actually get a big tax benefit, a triple tax benefit on that. You can get the tax deduction for making the contribution, and then you have those dollars go to work for you in investments, and that's tax deferred. And then when you withdraw it for qualified reasons, qualifying health reasons, you can actually pull that out without being taxed, tax-free. So HSA is a great way to go too, Carrie. If you need some more information on that, we'd be glad to help you out as we walk through the Ready to Retire process with our clients all the time, and we always address the long-term care piece to that. And building that holistic plan will help you figure out a plan for you if you don't qualify for long-term care coverage. Hey, this is our question of the week. We are going to send Carrie a Get Ready for the Future show tumbler, very similar to the one that I'm holding right here on the set. We just need him to send us an email. If you'll send it, Carrie, to show@getreadyforthefuture.com to claim it. Thanks for that question. Next up, it's Trace from Conway. I'm 59 and recently remarried. We both have adult kids and separate finances. How do we make sure our assets are protected but still plan together for retirement? Love may be blind, but retirement planning sure isn't. Protecting your assets is just as important as growing them. And I'll tell you, you're talking to a couple of people who have remarried in life, right? I mean, I remarried at 49. My first wife passed away at 48. I remarried at 49. I completely understand this issue, and full transparency, we're working through it as we speak.
It's probably a lot of tough conversations.
Yeah, it is an ongoing process, and everybody's situation is unique, so it is very difficult, I think, to address this from the radio mic, but we'll give you some things to think about for sure. Some of our clients who are on second marriages keep things completely separate. Some have blended their finances completely. I think Sarah and I, my wife, we are on that road. We have blended many of our finances. We have kept some separate, but our intention is to completely blend our finances and be a household that is of one mind and one budget, one income, and one retirement. And I think that's important. You have to decide that. The first step here is to figure out what your intentions are. Be transparent. Talk to your spouse about what your desires are, as hard as that might be. But the other thing, too, is if this is going to be a process, Teresa, that takes a little while, you're going to need to have some things in place that is comfortable for both spouses in the meantime.
Yes, I think even before you get into the process of planning, when you've been remarried, it's really important to complete a beneficiary review. There are some things that have changed. Your goals may have changed. Your priorities may have changed. And you don't want to be that person who a few years later realizes you still have an ex-spouse as your primary beneficiary on an account.
Yes.
So it's really important to do that. Whether you guys have unified goals for that right now or you have separate goals, take the time to look at every account you have, banks, investment accounts, employer plans, pensions, things like that, and make sure your beneficiaries are up to date in the interim while you're getting that process organized.
Yeah, and I think some planning is in order here, as we always come back to create a retirement income plan for you and your spouse. And when that's built, you'll begin to ask some questions that maybe you haven't thought of, and then you'll need to determine if you need a trust or maybe even separate trust, right? If you can't agree on things for them to go into one trust, it could be that you have your own trust as well. If you have a joint trust, you can control who, how, and how much to each of your beneficiaries for all of your accounts rather than giving it all to them at once. And if you can't agree on that, you can create separate trust, which would enable you to control what happens to your assets or whatever assets flow into that trust, and your spouse to control what happens to theirs after they pass away. But the reality is, depending on their, they said 59, okay, so they have built most of their life without each other, but there's going to be some growth that happens while they are still working that they do together. And I think it's important to think about that is, could I really have put this much in my 401k if my spouse wasn't working so that we have enough income, right?
Yes.
Those things like that. I mean, you are joined at the hip even if you don't see it, right?
Yes, and I think even if you choose to keep certain pieces of your assets separated, making sure that the planning process is done from a combined goal is really important. How you fund the income plan is one thing, but you do need to have unity on how that's going to work to make sure that both of you are protected if either of you ends up being here alone.
This may not apply to Trace because if it is a very complicated estate plan, you're going to want to sit down with an estate planning attorney. But we do want to let everyone know who's listening that we do offer estate planning services now at GenWealth as part of the Ready to Retire process. And we have an in-house estate planning specialist. So you can reach out today and book your consultation. We can walk you through straightforward estate planning that would include a will, a trust, power of attorney, healthcare directive. So if you don't have that in place, it's worth exploring. And it works well going through the entire Ready to Retire process. We've got a lot of clients who are doing it all through that service as well. So Trace, thanks for that question. Hope we offered something there that pointed you in the right direction. As we mentioned, it was very difficult not knowing the specifics of your situation, but you do need some help, some financial help, some estate planning help. Get a guide to help you walk through that.
And sometimes we have found that it helps just to have someone who's unemotional about all the decisions to help you guys find a happy medium.
All right, so we've got one question left. We're going to have to hustle through because we're running out of time. Andrew from Bryant, with so much of my financial life online now, retirement accounts, banking, even health records, how do I know if I'm really protected? Is LifeLock worth it, or are there better options out there for identity theft protection? So maybe you've got strong passwords and a locked phone, but is that enough? With more retirees certainly falling victim to identity theft every year, we're going to break down the tools that work and the ones that just give you a false sense of security here. So Andrew, we certainly would want you to monitor your financial statements regularly. You may already do that. Check your bank and credit card statements for any authorized charges or withdrawals, and call your financial institution immediately to report any suspicious activity. It's funny how things have changed to the digital world. I think about, I use a card to go to a restaurant, and I don't even worry about getting a receipt anymore because I know I'm going to go to that app, and you know what, you're tracking your spending on that app. Hopefully you are, but it's easy to keep up with identifying fraudulent activity if you're consistently doing that.
But I think it is easy to fall into a trap of just paying the statement and not looking at the statement.
That's
I think
true.
I've caught myself doing this before where I'm just paying it off. I do that weekly, but I'm not necessarily checking transactions. So if I'm not checking those transactions, it's very easy for something to sneak in I think I've shared this before on Talking Sense. I bought like 3 wigs before I realized those were not charges that my husband had put through and had to go challenge those. So it is important to check regularly. And then if you do have joint accounts with your spouse, make sure you guys are communicating about purchases so that you know what's valid and what's unauthorized. And the beauty of technology is you can now, in most cases, make that claim online. You don't even have to call a bank. If you're like me, you're doing these things late at night. And so you can get on that app and just submit, hey, I challenge this charge without even having to wait for banking hours.
I'm a big fan of LifeLock. I think there's a good thing there, but if it may be LifeLock, you do your research, maybe consider a different identity theft protection service, but paid services are great. They can monitor your personal data and credit and issue alerts if your information is exposed in a data breach. So I would say definitely a LifeLock or a similar service. We're not going to promote one over the other, Andrew, but a similar service is certainly worth it. And another thing too, Teresa, is if you need to freeze your credit, you may look at doing that.
When we did this thing with the FBI, they came in their white collar and talked to us about fraud. And one of the things they suggested people do is if you know you're not going to be buying anything that you need credit for in the near future, you can actually go and freeze your credit report where they can't release it. If they can't release it, they can't open new accounts. It's important to remember you've done that though, because if you decide to go buy a new couch and you want to put it on credit, you're going to need to unlock it first.
Here's a good one too. You can opt out of pre-approved offers. We're always getting that. Everybody's got a piece of our information, right? I mean, if we just speak about what we're looking to take, where we're taking the next vacation, Facebook's going to have it right up there in front of our face, right? So our phones are listening to us, but you can opt out of pre-approved offers by calling 1-888-5-OPT-OUT or visit optoutprescreen.com. That will remove your name from marketing lists for pre-approved credit offers, which can be a target for mail thieves. So that's another thing to think about.
And then if you're really concerned about data integrity, your online presence, there's 2 things you can do to really set yourself up to win. The first is to make sure you have strong passwords. I did this class one time about this, and they said it takes minutes for software to crack your password if it's just a word. If you add special character and a number and you make it at least 10 digits long, it takes months for that same software to work. They just move on. So having a strong password is really important. The other side of that is to make sure that you're using multi-factor authentication when you can. I get it. It's inconvenient. We have to use it for everything here at work. So I understand the frustration of having to wait for a text or an email code. But it can absolutely protect you from fraud very effectively if you use it.
Another one is to beware of phishing scams. We're talking about retirees especially. They are becoming more and more likely to be the target of these. Heck, we get them here at GenWealth. Do not click on suspicious links. You've got to really read through that content because they're going to throw a headline at you that's attention grabbing and it's clickbait. Make sure you read through it. You can usually pick out what doesn't seem legit, but you don't want to open those in unexpected emails or texts. Legitimate organizations, including the IRS and banks, and people need to hear this for sure because they don't always realize this, they will not contact you for personal or financial information in this way. So I think I've gotten a text fairly recently about that I've got a ticket outstanding, and if I don't respond to this link, they're gonna send a warrant out for my arrest. Nope, not doing it.
Yes, and I think if you had to choose just one password to be super protective of, your email.
Yeah.
It's your reset for every other password. So if someone can access your email, they can access just about any other account you have. So protect it the hardest.
And you need to be selective. As we hear the bell for our final thoughts, I'm going to throw this one in there. And this is really probably more of a problem for our teenagers out there. Be selective on social media. Limit the personal information that you post on there. That can provide answers to common security questions. I mean, we have our lives out there. I mean, I do it too. I post on social media, but I am a little bit, I always beware of how much information I'm giving, on social media. So that's a good one too. Okay. Hope that's a few things that can help, Andrew. And we are almost out of time, so let's finish up with our final thoughts.
I think my final thought would be cautious, kind of buyer beware what's out there. Make sure you've got a good filter. Your financial advisor can be that for you. That can help you filter through the noise in the internet and really come up with ideas that help you individually with your journey.
I want to remind you on my final thought again about our Built to Endure conference that's coming up, a business owners summit on Saturday, October 4th at the Delta Hotel in Little Rock. You heard him earlier today on the Get Ready for the Future show, but Coach Houston Nutt, former Arkansas Razorback football coach, will be our speaker. We'll sit down with a Q&A from him. We'll have a benefits specialist that will talk as well, and John Shrewsbury and Janet Walker, co-founders of GenWealth Financial Advisors, will talk about building a business that is built to endure. You can register at getreadyforthefuture.com/endure. And with the few seconds that I have left, I'll also remind you, we talked about the GenWealth Ready to Retire process today. If you'd like to walk through it, if you're wondering about estate plan, if you're wondering, do I have enough income to support my lifestyle in retirement? What about long-term care? Those are a few things that we talked about today. Walk through the GenWealth Ready to Retire process. It costs you nothing to schedule and sit down for that first appointment. Just send us a email. You can send it to show@getreadyforthefuture.com or call toll-free 866-653-PLAN. And that's all the time we have for this week's show. Thanks for being with us. And if you have a question that you'd like to get in for the show, all you have to do is remember this number, 501-381-5228. You can send a text or leave a voicemail. See you next time.
The GenWealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.